All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our July session of South Carolina Arts Network. Our speaker today will be Dell Hayes, and she's going to talk to us about finding the balance between operations and service. Ms. Dell is a dot connector and energizer with more than 15 years experience with working in nonprofit organizations. She excels in volunteering and community engagement and fundraising, and she has been recognized as an outstanding fundraiser executive by the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Central South Carolina Chapel. Mouthful, but very much worthy of all of her accomplishments, including the Women of Influence of Columbia Regional Business Report and the South Carolina Governor's Robin Burns Award for Volunteer Management. Ms. Dell has completed both the undergraduate degree and master's degree of Business Administration at the University of South Carolina. She has also completed the Interim Executive Academy of the Third Sector and Nonprofit Management Certificate with Winthrop University and the National Advocacy Learning Center with Praxis International. Sorry, can't read my own handwriting. Ms. Dell specializes in project management and interim leadership for nonprofit organizations in transition. She supports executive directors, development directors, and board of directors in adopting sustainable fundraising strategies, and plans focus on reducing turnover in fundraising and increasing donor retention. And it is a pleasure to have her with us today. I have enjoyed being in her acquaintance and collaborating with her, and I look forward to listening to all of the wonderful things that she will share with us about learning to say no as we do our wonderful work in the industry. Ms. Dell, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. I am going to pull up my screen. You know, we're 3 years into this, and I still feel like we never get this exactly right on the on these Zoom webinars. All right. So I always think it's good to start with a moment of reflection, some time to think during our very busy days about what are we actually doing and why does it matter? And so I'm going to encourage you as you watch this today to take a few moments before you dig in and take some notes as you think through your ideas. Why does your organization exist? 3 years from now, your organization is wildly successful. What happened? And what's critical in the next year for you to be on track for success? And then can you envision how your community is different if you succeed? So as you're watching this, hit pause now and take 5 minutes to reflect on these questions and jot down your answers, because they'll help give you some clarity as we move forward in our presentation today. Today, we are talking about building and balancing. Here we go. Yes, and I hope that you will find a way to look at growth and opportunities, but also staying on a manageable path and keeping things in a way that allows you to be not just professionally, but also personally balanced. I had a wonderful introduction. It was a little overwhelming even for me, but I am a passionate fundraiser, and I speak a lot about balance because I know what it's like to experience burnout. I left my last nonprofit job, and I was never unpassionate about the work, never not excited about the work. But I was tired. And I find that when you speak to most directors of organizations and you say, how are you? And they say one thing. And then you say again, well, how are you? And they always say, I am so tired. And so I think if we can help each other find ways to better achieve that balance, we can actually be more successful in accomplishing our missions. I really enjoy working with organizations as a partner along the way, and to have the flexibility to see different organizations while spending more time with these cute kids who are in this picture right now. They're the people I spend the most time with, and they're a big part of my why that drives my purpose in life. So the key about building and balancing is you have to have a clear idea about where you're going and who is going with you. You have to be even more clear about what it's going to take to get there. So we need to identify the people who are helping us along the road and avoid the things that are tempting, but that will take us off course. We're starting today talking about building. A typical nonprofit is currently churning and burning more followers than they keep. That creates an extreme cost because recruiting new followers can cost twice as much as keeping an existing follower. So we need to put some basic business practices and plans in place so that our map for success is actionable. So I get that paperwork is the least fun part of the nonprofit sector, but it's absolutely critical for success and credibility. If you miss these fundamentals, you will hamper your own growth and hinder your opportunities more than you know. We look a little bit at the hierarchy of needs because this area is where you fulfill those physiological and safety needs, things that keep you from stopping before you ever get started. There's no way you can get to a level of vision and self-actualization until these boring basics are taken care of. And I am bringing this up, even though it seems so incredibly basic, because you would be shocked at the number of nonprofits that are very well established and very well respected who forget to file their Secretary of State registration and their IRS paperwork. And that causes them to lose their 501c3 and have to start over. It causes them to have funding that's awarded and then taken away simply by not keeping up with these fundamentals. We also need to address that the nonprofit sector is not a place for people who can't hack it in the business world. The nonprofit sector drives significant economic impact, and we make up more than 5% of the workforce. Our budgets rival or exceed that of many small businesses. We're serious about our work, and that means we have to present that level of professionalism to our colleagues in the business sector who sometimes doubt us. We have to convey to them that nonprofit is our tax status. It's not our business model. Like any business, we have to have a clearly defined purpose and be clear-eyed about the work that's necessary to make a case for our work. Once those basics are filled, you've got your Secretary of State registration, you've got your 990s filed, you've done your annual reporting, you've done everything that you're supposed to do to just check those little boxes really quickly. You can start to address the bigger pieces of love and belonging. So awareness of belonging may have started for you in middle school as you looked for the perfect seat in the cafeteria, or you awkwardly waited along the wall to be asked to dance at a party. So you know how painful it is to feel like you don't belong somewhere or that you're not welcome. Maybe in more recent times, you felt the isolation of being separated from community, unable to safely gather, knowing that being together was so important, but also might cause illness or death. Our arts organizations guide so much of our community building and connection. This is the vibrancy that makes a community a wonderful place to live. And so how do you bring that group together? So a huge part of building is starting with your first followers. You need a wildly diverse group of people bringing different communities and talents to your table. As you think about the people who are with you on your journey, you may think of staff, board members, volunteers, participants, and other stakeholders. How do you do that? Let's look at this fun video about the first follower. Uh-oh.
Meridell, we can't hear the sound.
All right. Well, we will tag that in. But basically, it talks about the importance, this video talks about the importance of embracing your first follower. So the hardest part of building a movement is not getting someone to notice you. It's not getting someone to recognize that you're doing something. It's making sure that you embrace that first person who joins you as an equal and that you empower them to bring other people along the way with you. It's much more fun to watch people dancing on a hill and looking a little bit silly than to just talk about it. But fundamentally, that's the concept, is that we have to make sure that we are creating that welcoming environment so that our first followers, the people who join us, who say, this is cool, what they're doing is important, I'd like to be part of that, that they feel confident bringing other people in along the way. So are you recruiting followers? You have to make sure you know who those first followers are for your work. Oftentimes we don't know who our greatest ambassadors are, the people who really believe in us, who are out spreading the word. It's important to be able to recognize who those followers are who are bringing other followers along with them. Can you talk to them and find out what keeps them excited? What keeps them spreading the word? Why are they evangelizing for your organization, for your work? You've got to be building these movements because you're the people who make our communities vibrant places to live. We know that you have the followers, but we've got to make sure that you're keeping them and building more. Now that we've talked a bit about those foundations and you have people committed to go on this journey with you, we've got to figure out where we're going and what we will see along the way. We have to base our purpose and figure out how to keep that purpose crystal clear. So what does it mean to be a purpose-driven nonprofit? This is work that comes from BoardSource, which we know is one of the most credible organizations with research and training related to board development. So BoardSource dug into what differentiates nonprofits who succeed and those who don't achieve the same level of recognition. They identified 4 key principles that ground organizations in their path forward. There are a number of reasons why adopting this framework is challenging for nonprofits. 1, it requires slowing down and being incredibly intentional about every step you take. It requires being clear that you cannot say yes to every opportunity or idea. In fact, you can probably only realistically take on about 10% of the brilliant ideas that you have, if that much. So you have to acknowledge complexity within your organization and your community at the same time. And that can mean letting opportunities that are an 80% good fit for you go to another organization where they are a better fit. And then finally, the third obstacle to this mindset is that boards often have a hard time making decisions focused on the purpose of the organization if they are not trained to focus on purpose. Board members want the organization to be successful during their tenure. They want to see your organization on bright lights and big stages recognized for all the wonderful things that they're making happen. That can tend to lead to short-term decision-making that will advance the organization during their tenure, but not in the longer-term future. So what does it mean to put purpose over organization? That means if your mission is to serve as the catalyst for cultural and economic impact in Richland County, that you always think in the framework of that mission instead of what's best for XYZ Richland. This requires a level of trust with your board and having at least one person on your team who is willing to say, is that in line with our purpose? Every step along the way. The second piece of this is understanding and respecting your ecosystem. The complex ecosystem of your community is a map that you have to be able to lay out and understand. You will make mistakes. You will not be perfect. You will confront issues, especially if you are addressing equity and accessibility. One of the most detrimental steps an organization takes is to take on diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging work without giving staff and board time to do that work in their personal lives. We all have areas of conscious and unconscious bias, and if we are not radically honest with ourselves about them, those blind spots will torpedo our efforts in our organizations. We've got to find the sweet spot of board education and engagement that will pay off to having a diverse group of board members who trust and enjoy each other's company when the rubber hits the road. Making sure that collegiality exists means that you can forgive mistakes and have hard conversations. It's not enough for your board members to just bring diversity to the table, though. Your board has got to understand the community that you're serving and the ecosystem within that community. We've dug in a little bit about equity work at a very high level, but the third principle of this is doubling down on the importance of doing your own diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging work before you bring it to your organization. You have to make sure you aren't posting lofty statements at events and on websites about your commitment to these issues, but that your pay practices and employment practices don't match those words. Many organizations have unintentionally created inequitable pay practices because salaries are often driven by grants. Together, SC recently completed a compensation and benefits study, and in examining ways to address those inequities, It's recommended that organizations adopt 3 practices. This will only work, though, if you adopt all 3 practices at the same time. So the first step is relatively easy. It involves posting salary bands and position descriptions. The second piece is to conduct both cost of living and merit-based pay review. And the third is to conduct compensation equity analysis. Compensation and community equity analysis doesn't mean that you need a huge budget or a consultant to walk along the way. Just setting up a spreadsheet to help you understand your employees, your volunteers, and your donors based on gender, race, years of experience, amount of time with the organization can be an extremely eye-opening exercise about how folks are joining you as followers along the way. And finally, you have to have authorized voice and power. It's great to have a board member who's designated to always ask why. It can certainly be annoying, but having a person who ensures that decisions are not rubber stamped helps better decisions get made. It helps you to examine who the stakeholders are at the table and to make sure that the ones who are not at the table are invited to have a seat and a voice. It's absolutely foundational that you incorporate all 4 of these steps as you can, and to continue to build your strength in understanding them and how this works with your community. So once we've addressed all of that, you're probably like, there's no way I can do all of this. I'm already busy. Everything else is already important. The house is on fire. And I'm sure that that's true. So now we have to look at, how do you balance all of these competing priorities? So I like to sort things into 4 categories. You've got your board, your budget, the bull, and the big stuff. If we have to start with the bull, one of my favorite things I ever learned came from the 4 disciplines of execution. This is also called 4DX, and it's a framework for strategic planning that starts by acknowledging that 80% of your work week is spent in a whirlwind. These are the things that are urgent. It's your communications, the return phone calls, going to meetings, stopping and having small talk conversations with volunteers and donors. That work is a critical part of your purpose, but it often feels like the reason you can't actually get anything meaningful done. If you start by acknowledging that 4 days of your work week are already shot with being just busy, that sets you free to fiercely guard the 20% of your time for the transformational work that will actually move you to the next level. Now, it is very rare to hear an executive director say that they love their board and they're getting everything that they need from their board. But usually when we look deeper into this issue, it becomes clear that the director is not putting enough time and attention to managing the board. I get that it's a weird power dichotomy when you have to manage up to your boss, but you can neglect your board at your own peril. A board that is not engaged or is engaged in the wrong areas will cause significant and serious problems. When you look at that 80% of your time in the whirlwind, a large part of that whirlwind should be devoted to engaging with your board, meeting with each board member individually at least once a year, asking board members how they feel and how they feel they can best advance the purpose of the organization, making sure that they have meaningful work to accomplish will all pay immense dividends. Board members don't want to be dead weight, but they can't actively serve and make a difference if you don't provide them with the necessary tools. When this feels like you're beating your head against a brick wall, you have to remember that engaged board members are typically reliable major donors. You will receive dividends for your time and effort. So we talked about what you need from your board, but that comes with the flip side of what your board needs from you. Most boards fail to understand the seriousness of a commitment to serving on a board. We tend to undersell it. We say things like, oh, you only have to go to 4 meetings. It won't be that hard or take that much time. And we cannot undersell the importance of board service. It's a commitment that should be entered with clear eyes and clear expectations. Be honest with board members. Tell them that you want to be in their top 5 priorities, right behind their family, their church, and their work. They also need to understand that if the organization enters legal issues, they may be held personally liable. If a board member knows that they might lose their house over some legal issues involving your organization, they tend to look at your financial statements with a little bit higher level of scrutiny. They know that if you don't pay your payroll taxes, the IRS will come and ask them what happened with you at the helm. And so we have to balance that level of serious commitment in engaging boards. The third B is budget. So lack of financial literacy for executive directors and board members and leadership team members is a huge liability. You have to invest in training leaders to understand your financial statements and audits, because often an organization can seem to have a healthy budget, but cash flow issues can cripple that success. You've got to get help from your board treasurer, your auditor, or another leader on your team to stick to a conservative budget. Now, I'm a fundraiser by trade, and I have the utmost confidence in my ability to hit stretch financial goals, but unfortunately, things happen. Donors lose jobs, they get divorced, they get mad, they have any number of reasons to stop giving. Corporations hit hard spots or go through mergers, global pandemics happen, weird things happen to budget. So you can't ever stop fundraising, but you also can't overcount the number of eggs in your nest. There are great resources online. There's a nonprofit CFO website. There are tons of YouTube videos if you wanted to get started on your own, but I would recommend starting with whoever does your annual audit and asking that person to spend 30 minutes or an hour with you for the next 3 months and walk you through what your financial statements actually say. So finally, now that you know about the revenue and expenses side of budget, you've got to talk about how you're generating that fundraising and following. Fundraising is not an F word. There are people in your community who will never be able to participate in your organization's work. They may not be able to volunteer, but they want to show their commitment to you through a financial gift. If you embed fundraising into the culture of your organization and make it fun, your efforts will move forward. If your board thinks fundraising is a drag, they will never be very good at it. If they think fundraising is all about asking people for money, they will never be very good at it. It has to be about inviting followers to your organization and creating a welcoming environment at them. People are naturally good at and pay attention to things that they find fun and interesting. So if you can find ways to have your board have fun and connect with one another while helping with thank you notes, thank you calls, or going with you on donor visits, and that helps to prepare them to eventually be comfortable enough to ask for money. Building that culture of philanthropy means fundraising is for all team members, all board members, all volunteers, and you have to celebrate those successes along the way. So finally, we've got to talk about the big stuff. We've covered a whole lot of things that can seem really overwhelming, but ultimately, you can probably only accomplish 1 or 2 goals at a time. More organizations die from having too many good ideas than from a lack of a single good idea. So now is the time where you've identified your purpose, you've thought through who you need with you along the way. What is the one thing that you can do for the rest of this year that will transform your organization? All you need is one single area of focus that you can put 20% of your time into and bring those folks along with you on the journey, and you will reach your destination. If you can stay laser focused on that one big idea, I can guarantee that you will make it at least most of the way there in the time that you have with the resources that you need. It's really exciting to watch as things get narrower and more focused, they actually get more successful. It's hard, it's not easy. It can often involve hurting feelings as you have to let things go that people love, care about, and are important. But this is what it takes if you really want to transform your organization and transform your work. So finally, in closing, we started with thinking about what are those big things that we need to get done. We thought about what it's going to look like in 3 years if we knock it out of the park and our organization is wildly successful. We've talked about hammering that down and figuring out who you need with you along the way and what is that one thing that's going to transform your organization. So in closing, I think it's important to spend some time in reflecting about the times that you've done something impossible, about the times when you have done something you did not want to do but ended up enjoying it, and times where you have made decisions that maybe hurt your personal interests but advanced your community. As we center around those times where we did really hard stuff, we build our confidence in our ability to keep doing more hard stuff. As you move forward and reflect on the ways that this can drive your organization, you will break a few eggs to make the omelet, but it will be a delicious omelet in the end. It's something that will keep your organization and your community nourished, growing, and prospering. And so I would encourage you to take questions like these about your organization's purpose and put them on your board agendas. If you can put these at like the bottom and a footer on your agenda, it helps to keep your board laser focused on these questions that keep us purpose focused. If we stay purpose focused, we keep moving towards one goal, we can check those boxes and get big, hard stuff done together, bringing our communities together and uniting them instead of rushing along the way to get as many things done as possible. I know this is a quick overview. We had hoped to have a lot of discussion along the way and time to talk about how these things impact our organizations, but there's always something next and there's always time to connect. If you have been watching this presentation and you want to talk through how to apply these ideas to your organization, please give me a call. I would be happy to spend some time talking with you, sharing with you, and thinking about how this can be implemented in your organization. Reach out and schedule some time and we can go through what's next for you.